All right.
So Holly, should we go ahead and, so Joy, call the meeting to order? Okay. Abby, I assume you're going to be chairing the HDC?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yes. I'm
Great.
here. Yes.
so I'll go ahead and call the meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission to order. We're meeting jointly with the Historic District Commission. And I'm Hillary Hedges Rayport, Chair of the NHC. We're meeting by video. Everything's being recorded. And we're meeting as a certified local government jointly. I'd like to go around the room and confirm that all the members of the NHC who are here can hear me and that we have a quorum. I see Angus McLeod.
Here.
Mickey Rowland.
Here.
Tom Montgomery.
Here.
Clement Durkees.
Here.
David Silver.
Here.
Georgia Raisman. I saw your lips move, Georgia. Yeah, great. And we also have alternate Commissioner Ben Normand.
Here.
Great. And we have our staff certified local government coordinator, Holly Backus.
Present.
So we're now called to order. And the next item on the agenda is to confirm the agenda. And I would actually like to make a motion to make one change to the agenda regarding the minutes. I think there was some misunderstanding. I had suggested some changes to the minutes and the changes didn't get circulated for consideration or discussion. So my motion would be to defer acceptance of the minutes until everybody could see my suggestions. And I'm happy to tell you more about my suggestions if you wanted to hear about that.
I'll second the motion.
So my commission voting on this motion, Mickey,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Clement,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Georgia. Okay, I heard you say aye, Georgia. And Angus, are you also in favor of your motion?
I am.
Thank you. And I am as well. So I'm not sure what happens when we've made a motion and we also have the HDC, we're meeting jointly. I don't know if you agree with my request, but I would suggest that it would benefit, since we have such a large group, to have more detailed minutes so that people who, people are coming and going from this group. For instance, Ray is not here, Val is not here, they were in the last meeting. There's some people who are here that weren't in the last meeting. I think given that we're trying to work collaboratively on a series of meetings to accomplish some things, having a more complete record is useful. And in any event, I had made some comments that I would like to have be considered. So that was the reason for my motion and for requesting that we simply give everybody a chance to look at the revision that I'd suggested, or suggest changes to my revision, or have further discussion, and that we take it up at the next meeting.
Well, Hillary, why don't I call my the HDC together and then we'll vote on your revisions of that. So on the HDC is Diane, are you present?
Present.
Present. Okay. Carrie.
I am here.
Stephen.
Madam Chair, it's yourself, Carrie, and Diane.
And Abby. And then on Hillary's vote to amend the minutes or Is that what it was to amend, you had some added?
My vote was to defer consideration of the minutes until my amended minutes could be considered.
Oh, okay, all right. So on Hillary's request, Diane,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and myself, we're all in favor of that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess I'll work with Holly to make sure that those get circulated so you can see them.
On the record, I will be forwarding those as requested for everybody's consideration.
Thank you, Holly. And Abby, did you want to take a vote to approve the agenda otherwise?
Sure.
Or
make
should we
mo-
consider that approved?
Thank you, Diane. All those on Diane's motion, Carrie,
Aye.
myself, and Diane on your motion.
Aye.
Okay, we've got the agenda.
Okay, great. Okay, so now the next item is a statement from the NHC on individual and mutual goals. So, well, I just want to say I think it's fantastic that we're here together again, setting aside the time for a follow-up meeting. We met about a month ago, and since then the HDC has had one meeting to talk about next steps. And I think I speak for everybody to say that we felt the meeting was incredibly productive. We feel invigorated and encouraged about the group's commitment to helping each other and most importantly to understanding each other. I think what we decided as a group at the last meeting was that everybody is open to the idea of meeting more frequently than one time per year. We discussed that it was desirable to form joint work groups to tackle preservation projects of mutual concern, that we had flagged sustainability as one of those concerns. And then the overall context and how that relates and is expressed by design guidelines as a possible second concern. But that before we could have any joint working groups, it would be beneficial to establish an understanding between both commissions about what we each do, to document that understanding in writing, to identify areas of overlapping concern, and to establish a framework for how we want to work together on those areas of overlapping concern. And everyone was unanimous in thinking that that was an important thing to do. So we decided that we would each submit to Holly a description of how we understand our individual duties, and that Holly would put that together with additional information that she felt was accretive to the discussion and the understanding, and that she would circulate it to the group, and that the topic of this meeting would be to work out that memorandum of understanding. And it was also said during the meeting that we would kind of collaboratively type up in real time and work out jointly in an open session our areas of mutual concern and how to work together. So I just want to say by way of opening that the NHC did meet to approve a set of information about a description of what we do at our last meeting. And none of that information is in this MOU, which is disappointing to me. I just received this on Wednesday, as we all did. I don't feel that our commission has really been able to have input into this MOU as it stands. And it's really important to our commission that we're understood and our duties are understood. And I think this actually makes things more confusing. I obviously haven't had any input from my commission because we got this Wednesday and we're speaking about it for the first time here, but I can say definitively that what we submitted was not included as far as our duties. What was included is statutory legislation, which, you know, it is what it is, but it's not what we do. So I hope in terms of individual and mutual goals that we can, you know, I'm certainly curious about why that is. Obviously, I respect the effort of putting it together, and I know it's done with all best intentions. So I want to understand why there was this discrepancy between what I expected to receive and what I actually received. And I hope that we can work together to get to a point where we really do have something in writing that says what we both actually do. And that we could do that in this meeting. So I think that's the end of my statement. I'd like to invite the other commissioners to either, you know, second or contradict or say anything they want to say about where we are and the current draft that's been supplied. Holly,
Madam
maybe,
Chair,
oh,
if I could
yeah,
reflect on
yes, certainly,
your
please.
statement.
please.
So I just inserted the red aspect here of what you all had provided, specifically under the Historical Commission, Preservation Planning, those things. These are the specifics. Yes, the information that was put in this draft MOU, and again, as you mentioned, this is for us to flesh out, agree upon, what have you. This is specifically from the Massachusetts General Law. This is, you know, what you wanted to include as specifics. So I don't see a problem including the specifics. So.
Do any of the other, Holly, could you stop sharing the screen just for a minute? Because I just want to be able to see everybody. Does anybody else have any comment? I don't want to speak for how other people feel. I want to make sure that everyone on the commission can comment, or if you disagree, that you can articulate that.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. I think it takes more to take more time, because I only had today, this morning, because Thursday there was a meeting in the HDC. I think we definitely need to say who does what. But it needs to be studied. I think it needs to be studied a little longer to make sure that we include everything that both commissions are supposed to do and how we put them together. The HDC has a lot of stuff. If you go into the federal laws and the government laws and stuff, and I don't think that we've looked at them sufficiently. That's all.
Thank you, Diane. I just want to share something that I think would be helpful. You know, I don't know how why our enabling legislation, which is Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8D, was included in the MOU. I mean, that is enabling legislation, but it doesn't say what we do. It's really important. I think all of the Historical Commission members want the whole community to understand what we do, but it's also important for everybody to understand that we are not making up what we're doing. You know, the enabling legislation that you'll see in the MOU, it refers to the commission's program. It says several times furthering the objectives of the commission's program, you know, endeavors furthering the commission's program. So what is the commission's program? The commission's program is established by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And the ability to adopt historical commissions and the creation of the Massachusetts Historical Commission happened 56 years ago. And nearly 100% of towns in Massachusetts have historical commissions, and they're all supposed to do the same thing. So this is what this document that I'm sharing right now is, a Massachusetts Historical Commission document, which says local historical commissions in Massachusetts, a summary sheet for new commission members. And it says what we do. It says compiling historic properties inventory is an essential first step for a historical commission. So this is what we're calling our historic resources survey. It says National Register nominations, which we've discussed at length in the last meeting. I'm not going to go into it. It says receiving survey and planning grants. That's what we do. We apply for these grants and we deploy them for our surveys. We also might apply for a preservation project fund to restore a town building. That's not something we've done yet, but we could do. Section 106 reviews is another really important thing that we do, and we talked about it in the last meeting. I think you all know what it is. Public relations. So this is the advocacy part and the education part. We've talked about this. Advising our municipal leaders. We advise elected officials and other boards on historic preservation issues. They include zoning changes, the reuse of municipally owned historic buildings, master planning or preservation of historic landscapes. Then we also might be given regulatory powers, demolition delay bylaws. We create preservation plans. We propose local bylaws. In our case, it's a bylaw, not an ordinance. An ordinance is what a city has. We have bylaws. A historical commission may seek to create or change local bylaws to better protect historic resources. Examples might be local historic districts, demolition delay bylaws, scenic road bylaws, or village center zoning. For more information, contact the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So we have this document. I've requested it. We've looked at it. Now, similar names and different responsibilities. A historical commission is often confused with a local historic district commission. It is important that you understand the difference. A local historical commission are the official agents of municipal governments responsible for community-wide historic preservation planning. Local historic district commissions are the review authority responsible for regulatory design review within designated local historic districts created through town meeting. In some communities with local historic districts, as in Nantucket, the Historical Commission and the HDC are combined. This was the case until 2005, when the town meeting voted to have its own separate historical commission. And then it goes into a society, which we all know. So, you know, if we're gonna have an MOU, it needs to say these things. It should not say our legislation. I also want to share with you this document, which, you know, we also distributed after our last meeting, and I really thought was going to be part of this packet, which explains, you know, the system of government for preservation, which is what we are all part of as the CLG. So at the federal level, we have the Park Service. They're the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places. They decide what goes on the National Register. They also have the final say on what is and isn't a contributing building on Nantucket. And they provide money. Then we have the state, which is our SHPO. Then we have our local commissions. And these are the primary duties of each commission. Now, you know, each commission can decide, well, we're going to do some things and not other things. We're going to focus on this and that. But I mean, nobody can take away these responsibilities from our commissions. These are enshrined through a long history of practice, through legislation, through, you know, what our state and our country ask us to do. So I'm going through all this because I just want to propose some, what I think are more effective starting points for understanding. And I just hope that we can have an MOU that actually says what we do, instead of citing some legislation that really doesn't describe what we do.
Well, I think that's very important, Hillary, because it's what you have just read out, the last 8 sections are very important so that people know, so that the select board and the planning board and the zoning board know that you as the historic commission can get involved and make a statement of this. This is what very much is what part of your importance is. And you are not subject to every other commission's interests or whatever, if you have it. And I think that with the proper concern, we can join together to make the MOU and become a very definite, prominent commission and leading the island in a direction that it is supposed to be following.
Well, thank you, Diane, for that support. I mean, I really want to move forward on this. So, I mean, does anybody want to make a suggestion about what we should do?
I have a question. This is Carrie.
Yes.
Um, you said in 2005, which I wasn't really aware of, the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission became sort of two separate entities. So this to me seems like a way to bring them back together, correct? And the goal is to then create new bylaws because of what we're seeing happening right now. Because the bottom line in my mind is what is the goal here to actually make concrete things that we have, as the Historic District Commission, have the right to say no. Property values and all that sort of stuff, or whatever it is, your rights to your property to do whatever you want. Obviously, people don't have that right. There's zoning, that's hard, concrete fact. HDC, we're not always backed up with hard, concrete fact and can be, sued from our decisions. So is one of the goals of this to be able to have some bylaws that say this is not allowed, the commission is allowed to say no? This is where I'm just a little bit confused on the sort of overall goal here in terms of concrete ability to do stuff.
I
can
think
address
the
that.
only, yeah, I think the only goal for this meeting, and then I'll turn it over to Holly, is that we just want to make sure we have in writing what we each do.
Right,
We're
I'm
not
talking
trying to,
long-term.
what?
I was talking long-term, not just for
Yes.
this meeting.
Yes, well, I think it would be great. I mean, certainly Ken from the town has some desire to identify these areas that we might work on. I mean, we can't pass any bylaws. We can suggest bylaws to town meeting. Ken,
Right.
did you want to say something?
Yeah, what my understanding of what this process is supposed to do is simple. We are in the first part to set out what it is that by either statute or practice the HDC does, and by statute or practice what the Historical Commission does or is entitled to do in both instances. Then the purpose of this process is in fact to identify those areas of overlap where there's not clarity with respect to who has primary responsibility or secondary responsibility, attempt to identify those areas and then set up a procedure for making a decision as to who then takes primary responsibility for that. And that is my understanding of what the MOU should end up being at the end of the day. So it is a clarifying document in terms of saying, this is what the HDC does, its powers are, and what it currently does. Same thing with respect to the Historical Commission. These are the areas in view of what's going on in our community that it's not clear as to who has primary responsibility or issues that haven't been addressed, and set up a procedure by a vote of this committee as to who has the primary responsibility, or set up a procedure says that if these things come up, a special meeting is called to be able to make a determination at that time. That's my understanding of what the process of the CLU group meeting between the organizations is designed to do. And then once a year, or more frequently, as we're working at setting this up, you meet to address circumstances that haven't been addressed or identified and work out a resolution between the two organizations so that as a community, we're moving forward in the best possible way.
Okay.
Angus?
Thank you, Ken. That I think helps make things clear. And Hillary, everything that you read is review to most of us, but for those who are hearing it for the first time, it was a succinct statement about what we do, and really simplified the explanation of what we do. And so I think all that makes sense. And it would make sense for the HDC to make a similar statement of what they do, so that we can meet this understanding, and move forward with the MOU.
Thank you, Angus. Abby, I mean, you're our leader here of the HDC.
Fearless.
Can you comment on this and your aspirations here?
Right, well, I can try. I'd really like to know what the commission did before, so I could see what the difference was, because I still, even after Ken stated that, I don't want to be pitted against each other. I would like us to work in our agenda is to deal with the applications every Tuesday and Thursday. And we have our rules and regulations that we try to abide by. Some are gray areas, but what in the past did your commission do? And so in order to give me a better idea, if you could tell me, like, what would be the first thing you would do? What is the first thing you would like to do in your commission? What is the first problem you'd like to solve? Or is it the surveys? Is it articles on swimming pools? Or is it what is it that you would jump on to, and then maybe I can understand how it would differ from what the HDC does, because I think we're a little more clear. We get an agenda every week, we deal with that. And I kind of see your commission as taking on broader problems and really getting into it, and then how we would work together, like on the wood box, you would gather this information like you did, Hillary, and then you would feed that back to us, and then we have a backbone of something to lean on when we say no, you can't do that. So I'm still in a sort of a gray zone on how, what is your purpose. I want you to have a purpose, and I want your commission to be strong, and I want to work together.
And I know I speak for everybody, Abby, when we say that we feel the same way about your commission. And the reason why we're here is that we want to better understand how to help you. And we want to know how you want us to help you. And to answer your question about, what's the first thing, the community-wide survey of historic structures is the principal responsibility and the most important responsibility of the Historical Commission. I mean, our mission is protection of historic resources, which starts with identification and surveying. So that's absolutely the first thing that we would do.
Mhm.
And I think, and we are doing it. And I think with Holly's help. And I think that as far as the HDC, I mean, and what the HDC used to do, I mean, the HDC predates the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. So it was the original preservation authority on Nantucket. And its principal activities were around enforcing the design standards and issuing certificates of appropriateness on building permits. So the surveying and all of that stuff, the review, Section 106 reviews, the advocacy, the advocating for additional bylaws, that was all still the responsibility of the singular preservation authority, which was the HDC. But because there's so much that needs to be done, and you're on a wheel, right? These applications come at you and you have like 60 days or whatever to respond. And this happens in many communities. The reason why many communities
Hillary?
have two commissions.
Sorry to interrupt. I do have to run, but I just wanted to quickly say something if you have a minute.
Go
When you have a
ahead,
minute,
Kadeem.
sorry, I wasn't
Yeah.
able to raise my hand.
What is it, Kadeem?
Oh, I was just gonna say for a lot of the stuff like what the HTC does versus what you do too, I'd be happy to have a discussion with you as I really haven't been able to do so in this position yet. It's only been a few months for me and I've been so overwhelmed with other things.
Yeah.
I've been trying to join in on these meetings just so I can kind of get a grasp of what's going on. And just based off what I'm hearing now, it does sound like we definitely should have a discussion, possibly with Holly, possibly without. You know, I am the HTC compliance coordinator, so I'd be happy to talk with you at some point if you want to set something up.
Yeah, I'll be in your offices on Tuesday, Kadeem, with
I probably
Holly.
won't be because Tuesdays are
Oh.
meetings, so I only attend the
Oh.
meetings on Tuesday.
Wait, it's Tuesday, right? Or is it Wednesday? Yeah.
No, the meetings are on
Holly-
Tuesday, so I typically come into the office Tuesday at 4 o'clock or so to get ready for the 5 o'clock. I don't really meet with anybody on Tuesdays.
Holly or Kadeem, we'll set something up. Okay, I
Perfect,
appreciate
Hillary.
the
Thank you so
sentiment.
much.
Thank you. So many other towns have two commissions because it's really hard to do the planning work and surveying work when you're also responding to the COA requests. So I wouldn't say that, there is anything different. It's just that there was a lot of work that wasn't getting done. So Nantucket Voters created a second commission.
Well, on that point, on the surveys, so that would be your first thing. So, I mean, I'd like to I don't want to speak for the whole HDC. I'm, just on the board. But I would think that we would be in favor of you going forward and starting the survey, overseeing the survey. I know it's done by students as well. So I guess you would be in conjunction with that. Isn't that right, Holly? Isn't there a survey that
Well,
the students are?
Yes, both Madam Chairs, I guess. I think it's important to understand that out of all the commissions and all the historic districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Nantucket is the unique one because of the fact that we have our special act that was created prior to the federal law in '66, or for that matter, any state law. The creation of historical commissions and regular HDCs within the Commonwealth was after, obviously, '66. So Nantucket, with the Special Act, has a lot of mechanisms, not just reviewing architectural appropriatenesses, COAs, for applications, but there is also, they have the utmost protection as far as the preservation of our historical and cultural resources. The HDC has been charged with the surveys. We all know that the surveys have not been able to be updated within the last 30 years. So there is a need to have, obviously, the preservation planning function of this historic district, which is through the Historical Commission, which was enacted by town meeting back in 2005. Very fortunate to have that. We all know that it was defunct, and then in 2019, this commission came back. With the creation of the two commissions together as the certified local government, remember, we're the 27th community within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to be a certified local government. It's always been something that I never understood why we never were, and maybe this is why, but we're now offered federal funding to update our surveys, to do other preservation planning aspects for our National Historic Landmark and our local district. There's so many things that I think that from a preservation planning perspective, this island, this town, this county has not even been able to scratch the surface yet. Doesn't mean we won't, but we can. And obviously it's a joint collaboration. It doesn't take a single person to do. And the HDC has always had the HDC historical resource surveys. Now with the effort of the federal funding that we received through MHC, with the charge of the Historical Commission, this would not have been able to be done without the CLG. So again, this is a joint effort, but with the Historical Commission as leading the charge, because that's how it's handled with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, our SHPO. And that we're working on that. We've hired PAL. They'll be here next week to meet us. Very excited about that. They've already hit the ground running, so to speak. And this is again, an effort that's going to benefit the entire historic district, which includes both these commissions. So I would strongly agree that our historic and cultural resources updating our surveys is a mutual, I guess, priority and project moving forward. Again, we can't do it one without the other. And I also think out of the list that of what the historical commission does, another overlap, and that's what I've also included, is our historic tax credit applications. The HDC has always been, even without the update to the NHL nomination in 2012, has always been the one to dictate on whether or not something is contributing towards the local district. The fact that we, again, are offered being a National Historic Landmark, we do have the documentation that the National Park Service uses, and will be offered to obviously update that as we see fit. But when it comes to historic determinations, that's what the historic district commission does for historic resources to be considered as historic and be exempt from certain building codes. So, and then the historical commission, obviously, it reviews the proposed rehabilitation projects that properties go through in order to receive both state and or federal historic tax credits. So I see that as another mutual project moving forward. I really would like to have direction on this draft, how you all would like to see it. Again, yes, HDC is extremely busy, and I will apologize to everybody that you all didn't received this draft compiled with a little bit of what Hillary provided, compiled with a little bit what actually Stephen Welch provided to me. Again, this should be something, as well as Ken, this should be something that is done by this entire full CLG commission. So we do understand our guardrails and parameters and how we're working. And again, this is in addition to the already signed MOU with the Massachusetts Historical Commission that both Hillary, Ray, and myself, as well as the select board, signed. So
to that point, Holly, and thank you for that, maybe we could really get to work on creating this draft, because I think we all aspire to not have another meeting, to not leave this meeting without making some progress on the MOU. Would it be okay hearing from, I've shared an editable document. Does anybody object to moving to some drafting together?
No, but
I
I'd
just
like,
wanted, sorry, Diane, I just wanted to make a mention to the commission that whatever is worked upon, it will need to have a final say-so and review by our town council as well as town admin. So I just want to put that on the record.
Is everybody okay with moving towards drafting? Because, you know, we're the groups that have to agree to what we agree.
Yes,
I
please.
don't see a problem with the HDC moving forward, but I'm just one person and we're missing Ray. And I, you know, we all are pretty, you know, we all are different people on the board and think different things. So I don't want to speak for anybody else. Me personally, I'd love it to start going forward, but I would like to get the okay from my other board members and associates.
I would like to make a, are you through, Abby? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Diane.
I was just going to say, I would like to, I think that Abby's, not Holly's background and the study of the two commissions is so important, because she knows more about what we are able to do than we know. And I think that to make it stand out as to what the two commissions can do and do, I think it's very important that she be part of it, if she can be, if she has the time. But she is the greatest knowledge of what each one does. And I think that is what will lead people on. I think to have me come up and say what I think is the commission does is one thing, or Abby or you or Angus. I think that to have a professor up at the blackboard would be most important, and I think that Holly has the background to do it. Kadeem also in the more working office is also, but Holly knows background that we aren't even aware of. And I've been on this commission for almost 20 years, and I still don't know everything. So I'd like to see her be part of it before we try to start one without some of her advice.
Well,
Hillary,
we
it's
do have-
just, it's Ken. Just my experience with respect to this is trying to draft something with a committee of this size is almost unworkable. My suggestion is that there's been a good discussion in terms of trying to, and we have a better understanding of some of the things that need to be included in this. I think that if the two chairs choose to have a deadline to get suggested or recommended changes to Holly by a certain date, Holly then puts them together and circulates the document around so that everybody has a chance to take a look at them. And remember, we're looking at the concept in three separate areas. One, what the HDC's responsibilities are. B, what the Historic Commission's responsibilities are, and some of the topics that we talked about today. What may be useful today is in terms of having a discussion as to some of the topics that we see as needing addressing, as opposed to trying to define them in writing. But I think that to my mind gets us to the point where we're trying to get to in terms of clarification as to what is known, and then B, getting to what is the unknown and how we address that.
Okay. So, well, I think what we can do, Ken, is maybe just, I could just articulate some of what I would propose changing here, just so that everybody can see what it is.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so here, this is a small, so right now, this is the staff MOU, just pasted into a Word document. The first thing that I wanted to suggest, I'll turn on track changes. Can you guys all see this document? Yeah. I wanted to suggest that we weren't really reactivated. We were appointed. Whoops. Why can't I change this? Oh yeah, there. Reappointed. You know, the commission existed, it just wasn't appointed. That's a small comment. Okay, so now it says NHC is tasked under this law, and this is this long list of stuff that is basically Massachusetts General Law 40C, 40 Section 8D. And I would like to see, I don't see any purpose in keeping this here. It doesn't say what we do. I suggest that we take it out, that we leave, and that we replace it with what, you know, we had asked to be here in the first place. And I think I maybe would like to pause on that and just go through what it says. Let me just get rid of these numbers.
On that note, if I may, I do think it would be beneficial to include as an addendum the Massachusetts Historical Commission's document that you actually showed earlier that shows specific things. So that way it's fairly clear this is what has come from the state, the direction on what historical commissions do.
Yes,
And again, they're created for basically communities that don't have a historic district with a special act. So there are going to be things that overlap. I just want to make sure that that's
Okay.
clear for everybody.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Holly. So what the historical commission voted at our and decided at our last meeting is that, so this said, all of this is not, not controversial and totally true. The Nantucket Historical Commission is an independent municipal commission authorized under MGL Chapter 40, Section 8D for the preservation, protection, and development of the historical and archaeological assets of the town, county, and island of Nantucket, and NHL. The NHC was created and adopted by an act at the 2005 Nantucket Annual Town Meeting. Although the commission was inactive for many years, it was reappointed by the town select board in June 2019. The NHC is tasked under law. I mean, I would get out under law. I mean, I don't even know what that means. We are tasked. This is what we do. I should say are tasked to preservation planning, maintaining the island-wide structure survey of historic resources, which are structures, places, objects, archaeology, and a preservation plan. Recommending to the Massachusetts Historical Commission and the U.S. Park Service updates to the NHL data sheet of contributing structures. And then I had a question, does zoning review belong here or somewhere else? Okay, but we know from that sheet I shared earlier that zoning review is part of what we do. It's part of preservation. Participating as a consulting party in Section 106 review and the state equivalent, I don't remember what regulation that is, a CMR or whatever. Advocating for preservation to other boards and commissions and the community. And that's about structures, streetscapes as historic context of buildings, archaeological lands, culturally significant landscapes, advocating for preservation through bylaws. Education, supporting or not applications for the state historic preservation tax credit at our discretion. So this is what our commission does. This is what we believe we do. And I think it would be helpful to understand. I know that our commission is all on the same page with this. I'm just going to say that zoning review goes here. Does anybody have any questions about this or any suggestions that some of these things are things we should not be doing, or any other comments?
Good
No,
debate.
yeah,
Hillary, can I? I've
Yes,
got a-
Mickey.
what I don't see here, and I'm not sure that this is the place for it because it's always been under the HDC's purview, but the updating and I guess just keeping current building of Nantucket in mind as a reference, guidelines. So that's something that I think the HDC normally handles, but it is something that I think that the two boards could do in collaboration. Maybe the HDC doesn't want us there, but I think we could be beneficial in dealing with that issue.
So it's really clear, Mickey, that setting the design guidelines is the prerogative of the HDC.
Right.
Now,
I,
this is, I think, what, oh, sorry, Carrie, yes?
I'm sorry I interrupt, but I do think with the different boards that give us advice on historic structures, it's really important that you guys are involved in that. I think having a more detailed view on certain buildings is highly impressionable on us as a board when we are reviewing things. So I think that should be a joint effort for sure.
So do we want to put that, so I've just typed in under, because I think that would be under advocating, because you have to adopt the design guidelines. We can't adopt design guidelines for you, but would you want to put that under here that, we advise you and you can choose to listen to us or not? Or would you like to?
Yeah, advise, collaborate, whatever, because I think that's what happens in the HDC meetings anyways. I mean, obviously we're all looking at an objective, we're all in an objective kind of position, except for when there's dates on historic buildings, when there's evidence of historic fabric, things like that. But, you know, just as a sitting alternate board member, having the hard historical facts is substance of which we can then pull from in our decision making. And again, there are, how many ever board members there are, there's that many opinions about stuff. But the hard, tangible stuff is what gives us, you know, backup in the decision making. And I think you guys, as true historians and preservationists, have information that we need.
Yeah, I think especially on, I keep bringing up the wood box, but especially on buildings that really should be tagged and preserved, it gives us something to fall back on when you come in and it comes up on an application, and then we can go back to, well, we rely on historic structures and we rely on the SAB and Sconset. We rely on these other groups, and you're another one of those groups that can help us round out the application by giving the history. So yeah, I think it's important.
So I've summarized that in this way, I've said, so maybe it's its own, you know, headline, advise the HDC on preservation of historic resources, architectural history and design guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, the design guidelines are probably more up our alley, but the extra history, all that fiber that we don't always have the opportunity to talk about or get in like a 7-minute, you know, we don't have that much time to talk about, but if it's, so my dog is barking, so I'm just going to cut up, but I did want to say, hey, Buckley, shut up. The education part, getting the word out that so many people, all these commissions believe in the same thing. I would really like your commission or somebody to get it out to real estate people or to the general public. I'm going to stop there.
I'll add something to that because I see it often. You really can't impose your values on people. They're going to value what they value and propose things that you might not yourself. And the educating of the public of the importance of our history and everything, I think is hugely valuable. It's just how do you force people to value what you value, what we value? It's sort of like you have to make it as sexy and romantic as possible so people buy into it. And that's sort of the mission all over Nantucket, I think. You know,
That's the real estate commission, but
yeah.
I don't know whether anybody read this week's real estate thing, but I think that they perhaps could keep their opinions of how many pools and extra buildings and sheds one can build, because they don't always tell the truth, because they don't perhaps know what the zoning is. But I know 2 cases of places that were advertised that they could build pools in the area, and in those 2 particular cases, they were not able to.
Right.
So
This
I
happens
think
all the time.
sometimes you have to leave out misinformation.
Right.
let-
Working in the field, you try to educate people all the time, but that doesn't mean you're going to change their minds and make them not want a pool. So it's
No,
very
that
complicated.
wasn't what I meant.
issue.
That's not what I meant about not having a pool. You don't have to put in, unless you know what the zoning and the rest of the stuff is concerning a lot, you shouldn't put in extra features.
Yeah,
so-
so Diane, I think I understand what you mean. You mean when the realtors, put in, oh, this lot can have this and that potential for
Yes.
expansion, and then it comes to you and people are really upset.
Yes, that's right.
Well, that comes-
Well, what I put down, I've just added a little more detail here to education, about preservation architectural history. Okay, education for community at large and profession boards and professionals.
Everybody comes to Nantucket for a reason, and they're attracted to the history, the romance, the beauty, but then it gets pushed aside for, the lifestyle. So how do you make people appreciate
Okay.
the history?
All right, so maybe we need something here about Nantucket's preservation program.
And the reason for it.
Yeah,
I don't
Okay.
think I don't think there is anything in existence that fits within the description of Nantucket's preservation program, Hillary.
Ken, I mean, our whole building with Nantucket in mind is our preservation program.
Well, you could also put that under somewhere you wrote that you were going to help with the articles or the zoning. I mean, if you could back us, I mean, not us, the HDC, I'm talking about Nantucket in general on zoning laws that help keep the historic fabric.
Yeah, it's the black and white. You have to be able to say no to certain things in certain areas, and we don't have that right.
Right, there's another area that we haven't talked about. There's pools, but the latest thing we have is lot line to lot line, people manipulating the land in order to accommodate a pool and a cabana, where they're taking something that we would normally burn down, they're building up, and the neighbor comes back to 4 or 5 feet of pressure treated wood to hold up their agenda. So, I mean, when these articles come up, it would be good to have your support.
All right, so maybe instead of zoning review, because that sounds like we're actually like a zoning enforcement officer, which we're not. We put preservation through zoning and bylaws, which is actually what is in that MHC document that I shared earlier.
Yeah, that's good.
Much better language.
And then under education, we have education for community at large and boards and professionals about Now, Ken, did you want me to not say preservation program?
Well, what I wanted to do is I jumped at that because it didn't jump out at me, but I think it's really important to indicate that through building with Nantucket in mind, that's the way, that's what the community has said
Okay.
are the guidelines to in fact try to preserve the character of the community.
All right, so maybe that's an area of you enforce the guidelines and we educate people about the guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's a good combination in terms of the two working together.
Well, yeah, and you could, I mean, how we could use that is that town meeting, when some of these articles come up and people are talking about, that's a time to educate the town that if an article comes up, Hillary could stand up and say, this is why we feel thus and so. And that way people, Carrie's right. You can't change people's minds, but we can bend them. We can try.
Yeah, and we can make joint statements too, which I hope we will. Okay, I have here supporting applications for state historic preservation tax credits. I just want to pause on this a little bit because we want to see these preservation tax credits. I don't know if everybody knows what they do, but they are a really powerful tool to motivate individual property owners who have an income producing property to undertake a preservation oriented rehabilitation. So in other words, not gut their house and instead identify and document the historic features of it and preserve them. And everybody, Holly's really working hard to educate people about this and liaise with consultants that help owners make applications for this, and we're also prioritizing it. One of the obligations for the state, there's a state tax credit program and a federal tax credit program. The state requires a letter of support, or you don't have to support it, a letter of support or not, from the Historical Commission. And I've heard and obviously we want to support these programs, but we don't want to support programs that we don't feel are actually a qualified historic rehabilitation. So if we see a program come to us, and I don't want to overemphasize this because right now we're not seeing a lot of these, there's a handful of them. But if there's a program that comes to us that we feel is just really not upholding the standard of historic rehabilitation, a preservation, it's not really preservation, it's a historic rehabilitation, then we're not going to support the program. And I just think it's a little confusing because I'm now showing you this third bullet point. Both commissions review historic preservation tax credit applications with respect to the significance of structures requesting such applications. So this statement is confusing to me, and I would like to know from the HDC, we have to give a letter. Do you guys also want to be giving a letter?
Okay, I couldn't, first I want to mention that statement, yes, does need some work. So I will be on the record to say that. I'm trying to, again, through our preservation planning initiative and my goal of getting the information out there on our town website, which is a work in progress for me. But so people understand the process, because Nantucket, again, goes back to Nantucket Special Act from 55. HDC's ruling on historic significance has not gone away. It won't go away. It still is. They still have that power, if you will. And when applicants are submitting to the Historical Commission for their support on historic tax credits, I am also requesting them to submit for a historic determination to the HDC. And with that's also giving them, if they want to, so choose to be exempt from certain building codes, they can do so through that review process and that letter. So the letter is sent to the applicant. They can do whatever they choose, but I do believe that they're also submitting that to the state with their support letter from the Historical Commission.
Okay, so I assume we're going to have a similar list of key responsibilities. So I've just made a note of historic determinations here. So that is in total the list of what we do, and we've added to it collaboratively with feedback from the HDC. Is there anything else to put on this list about what the Historical Commission does? I'd like to hear from from everybody. Abby, is there anything else you want on this list from the NHC?
Well, I had mentioned the thing about the land, manipulating the land to suit the agenda of a a development of a lot of land that I don't know how we can put that in, but it's beginning to be a problem for us, that retaining walls screening is beginning to be a really big problem, because people are doing things that really have to be screened now. I don't know how that fits in, but that seems to be one of our big issues these days.
Well, I think we would address that together under the, advising the HDC. Let's see, education for community. I mean, if you wanted to, if you felt that you needed an additional bylaw, or you said, you know, we have this problem and we can't deal with it because of the following things standing in our way, you might say to us, can you help us with this? And then we could come back to you with some ideas. If we had ideas.
This brings up a point that I brought up recently in different meetings, is existing laws that we have had, that I have sat on one meeting after another, 10 or 15 years ago, that have all of a sudden disappeared. And now I'm told they were not in our purview. But when did they get taken out? I think we need to go back and review some of these existing laws. The law that we worked with on North Ave over in that area that went on for ages was how much additional dirt you could add to a lifting or whatever of a location. That is something that we used to deal with all the time in these houses that go up and they lift the house or the pool or whatever, 6 or 7 feet of dirt. That was against the rules. Those were against the laws and we didn't have to accept them. And I think that is important to what's going on in the area. And I think people should know about it. And I'd like to know how it got removed. The other thing that we used to do all the time is lighting. This is a problem now. People light the spa and the thing and everything. There was a dark sky agreement, and the HDC covered lighting, not in just great big areas, but every area, because of the original addition to the school. For one, the Stop and Shop, the Cape Cod Bank. We were in charge of the lighting process to make sure that it was low and not hitting the sky. But now all of a sudden, it doesn't seem to be in our purview. I think that somewhere along the line, some existing laws that have lost track of, needs to be reviewed so we know what rules or regulations we're working with.
Can I
So
address that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go
I
ahead,
know we're
Carrie.
getting off on a tangent about something
Yeah.
very specific, but I just want to address it to Diane, kind of, is the evolution of building on Nantucket. I see what you're saying, Diane. From 20 years ago, getting a set of French doors on a visible elevation was impossible.
Right.
Now they're all over the place, and it's like an intangible evolution of building on Nantucket. People's needs, people's desires, people's wants, the level of property value. I mean, there's so much that goes into how we as a board vote, and how in the past boards have chosen things that they would just not allow. I don't think law is the right word. I think it was kind of a guideline and a thing a particular board would call out. And I don't know if law is the right word, because I think this is also subjective in so many cases. That's the reason.
Well, I don't know, except
It
back
makes
then when
sense.
they were there, we could use them as a reason for a denial.
Right. Well, there's
That
been
seems
so
to
much
me
done.
more than you have to get 5 commissioners all, going with you. They were there, and I think that we worth some time at least to see if they could not be reviewed and see if they're important. And if they're not, let them go. If they are, then we should see where we've lost them and how we can reestablish them to some point.
So I think we're getting into really what you guys do.
Yeah.
And we can support that, and at your invitation. And we might come to you and say, we're concerned about this, but I don't think I think can I just I put down the things you mentioned on a list at the bottom. Carrie, did you have any other comments on this specific list of what the NHC does? or questions?
No, but I actually this whole time have been wondering, what do you want us to do? Knowing what you know and knowing what you do, it would be really interesting to have a list of what your commission would like to see from our board, since we are the ones who are making decisions for COAs.
Well, I think we would love to get to that. And if we can get an MOU in place, then we can have some meetings about that. And so we put down advocating for preservation, advising the HGC on preservation of historic resources, structures, objects, and landscapes and architectural history. I took out design guidelines.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. Well, in terms of the book itself, a lot of that gets pushed. You can stress guidelines as much as you want, but everybody's going to push it as far as they can go to get what they want. But how to implement them in a realistic way, because there's so much precedent now for all sorts of things out there. That I use precedent as a backup when I'm looking at something and saying, this isn't quite right. There's no precedent for it in this neighborhood. But
well, we have advised the HGC on preservation, and I've put down structures, objects, landscapes, and now I've added context, because I mean, we're really not about recommending how a new house should look.
Right. But the context, the precedent of what, yeah, I get it.
It would be hardscaping, Hillary, is what another besides land. Well, I don't know, just leave it.
No, but I think, right, Abby.
Diane, do you have any comments on this list?
No, I think we've got down, at least it's a good beginning. And we may find more as we work with what we're putting up. We find out the answers. I don't think this should be the be all and end all list. I think it's a good start to a list that needs to be reviewed as you go along to see how it can be done and see what else needs to be done. As Carrie was saying, what do you want us to do? We need to keep our importance and our visibility on what we are asking for and and the reason that we are. I think education, as you got here, for the community at large, boards and professionals, is very important in the long run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think adding the tax credits to somebody who's bought a 1750s house, a lot of people don't know about tax credits, and it might be incentive to do a more sensitive job.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mickey, do you have any comments or changes to this list? I'm sorry, I'm not getting all of the list on the screen at one time, but hopefully you can see it.
In terms of what we do as the NHC, I think you've got a pretty complete list, and I'd like to look at it, and study it, and probably on my own time to get a little better thought behind it. But I was, willing to comment on what we're going to be doing as a collaborative list.
Okay. All right. Well, can we get to that next?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Clement.
Hi. No, I think, Hillary, I think you've done a great job with this, with the list. I would like to see, well, now I think it's the comments from the HGC have been wonderful. Thank you all for participating so much. I'd like to see a list from the HDC about, what they see is specifically what they do. I mean, I know they review all the designs, and due to our, whatever's happening to us right now, where everybody wants a house here and everybody wants everything they want, including pools, cabanas, fitness rooms, and I don't know, screening or whatever they want, and without regard to what they're buying. So I would like to have them come up with a similar list And also have, like Mickey suggested, a list of, I think we agreed last year, at the last meeting, that we all wanted to collaborate on sustainability. And so maybe make a list of those things and
Yeah.
and what each of us could do towards getting accomplishing those goals.
Okay, well, I think everybody wants to get onto that. I just want to ask Tom, Angus, and David, is there anything that hasn't been said that you want to say about this list of what we do?
No.
Okay.
Got it. Ready to move forward.
Okay. All right. So the next part of this MOU is that the Nantucket Historic District Commission is an independent blah, blah, acts on blah, blah. Okay. And then it doesn't say what you guys do. It just has this language generally. I think the utility of something that is supposed to be we're supposed to be developing a framework and an understanding is that having the specifics are very valuable. So I'd like to propose, and I really want to turn it over to Abby, but I would like to propose that maybe this language stays or maybe it doesn't. Although I would ask that this be removed because it's really vague, that we have a list of what you do. And but I want to turn it over to you, Abby, and I'll type what you tell me to type.
If I may, before Abby mentions, I did have some verbiage in here for the HDC. I took it out, but it's right out of their mission, which is on the town's website, which they in turn had voted on. It's a PDF on the website, to specifically kind of basically describe what they do. For instance, within the entirety of the Nantucket Historic District, no building or structure shall be constructed or altered in any way that affects and creates exterior architectural features unless and until the appropriateness of such construction or alteration is first reviewed and then approved by the HDC. And the HDC determination will indicate the appropriateness of the proposed construction or alterations, including its size, shape, and siting, along with any conditions required of approval or a denial will be issued. The HDC issues a certificate of appropriateness for new construction, alterations, signs, demolitions, moves, historic determinations, and issues minimum maintenance enforcement actions. In a nutshell, that's what the certificate of appropriateness is.
Okay, so in the interest of just having brief statements, I think the number one thing that the HDC does is design review, which is issues certificates of appropriateness for all alterations, demolition, construction, island-wide.
Well, I think the paragraph up above that, and they've heard it from me enough, is the acts of the Historic District Commission is to promote the general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Nantucket through the preservation and protection of historic buildings, places, and districts of historic interest through the development of an appropriate setting for these buildings, places, and districts, and through the benefits of resulting economy of Nantucket in developing and maintaining its travel industry through the promotion of these historic associations. I think that is important. It gives the HDC the ability to review a building that does not fit in with the buildings next to it, behind it, in front of it, and would be acceptable as an architectural structure, but would not fit in with the area that it's going to take. The pony farm. I think this is one important thing we do. It's not just a house that's architecturally correct, but it's a house that's architecturally accepted in the area they're putting it. This is where the spas come up. This is where the pools come up. This is where the bocce fields come up. And I think that
is, and it's a mission statement, so it's got to take some importance. It's not just, I suggest this. It says it's an excerpt from the district in charge. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. I think it covers a lot of what we're trying to do.
Okay, well, that's here, so that can stay here. Sounds
Hillary,
like-
just a comment.
Yeah,
Kadeem has volunteered to, in fact, work with you and Hillary and Holly to be able to provide this sort of input in terms of the information. I think that try to draft this without the resulting input from him, who said he's not had an opportunity to be able to do that, is probably not the most productive way of doing this. I think the message is clear that there needs to be a greater definition with and specificity of what the HDC does. And I think that it may be the most appropriate use of time to go what Mickey suggested in terms of the areas where he was going to raise where there are things in the future that can be worked out jointly so that we in fact start to define those and then have an opportunity to be able to come to a resolution as to principal level of responsibility for it. Just a suggestion.
okay, so,
Yeah, no,
I'm-
I think that's, I second that suggestion.
okay,
But I did, could we go back to that first paragraph that Diane was reading? Because
this one,
yeah, I understand that all the way up until it starts to talk about benefits resulting to the economy of Nantucket in developing and maintaining its vacation travel industry. I have a little bit of a problem with that in that we are all historic structures and we are here to maintain historic structures. And although I want the economy to stay as well as it possibly can, I don't understand that language.
Abby,
So-
it's right out of the special act, verbatim.
and it is out of the special act, but Abby, I can maybe explain how I've always understood the reason for that being there, which is that in exchange for having the power to limit people's rights to manipulate their private property, so people give up that right privately for a community benefit, which is rightly or wrongly usually defined in commercial terms, economic terms. So it has, even though this is a special act, it's tied to the laws of the Commonwealth and the country, basically around, this special act was developed in a framework related to land use.
Okay, well, no, I'm just saying it goes in the same sentence. It goes from
Yeah, no, I know.
historic relevance and then goes to the economy. I don't want to hold up. I want to hear what Mickey has to say. So sorry about that.
Okay, could I just ask that we delete this? I mean, I understand what is trying to be said, but this whole mission of the HDC, it's for an entire community benefit. And I just don't think this is the right place. Is that okay?
I would wait to hear from other HDC members since we're only 3.
Okay.
I don't know what
Yeah.
other people think, but
Paul's not here either, so.
For the record, it's also included on their background and objectives, which they voted on, and it's on the town's website.
Okay,
Can I make
all
a
right, fine.
thing of Nantucket going for the tourist and maintaining travel industry through the promotion of the historic associations? Think in mind of the trailer that is parked next to the old fire station at the major road going out to Surfside and our intercities in Mid-Island, where we have all sorts of not old, perhaps historic buildings, but historic areas. I think that's what they mean. We don't need to put, maybe if that disturbs somebody, don't put it in, but I think that's what it is saying. And I think I wouldn't agree with taking out that whole paragraph. I really wouldn't.
yeah, no,
Oh, I'm not suggesting that we do. So that stays there. I was just, this is fine. Okay, I think we're at a good pausing spot unless anybody wants to add anything. And what I'm saying is taking up Ken's suggestion that Hillary, Kadeem, Holly, and who else from the HTC would like to join a discussion with Kadeem and Holly?
I would. I've been on this for some time.
I know Mickey's in the queue to say something, but I'd like to speak as well when there's an opening.
Yeah. Okay, so are we okay moving on from specific HTC responsibilities to the other parts of this document? Sounds
Yeah.
like no objection. Okay. The next thing, and Angus, I'm going to call on you. I just want to get some direction about what we're doing next, because the next thing here is about the duties of a CLG, which we do need to talk about. But I know it's getting late. We have half an hour, and would folks like to actually talk about the joint activities? Areas
Yeah.
of overlap?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Angus, what did you want to say?
Oh, I guess what I was hoping for in this meeting was that both commissions, HTC and the NHC, as the NHC, we've already, talked about our, what our role is and what we do. And I thought it would be that simple with the HTC, and then we would talk about those points and then really sort of focus on the overlap as Ken had mentioned earlier. I think the HTC work is probably more straightforward and simpler than what the NHC does. I mean, it primarily is the enforcement of Nantucket design guidelines, and those were clearly written. They've needed to be updated. They're funded to be updated. But the special act, as Holly has provided for us at the top of the page now, talks about all the things that are important, and you can't stop. I mean, to Abby's point, you can't stop at the economy of Nantucket. It's through the promotion of these historic associations. So that is Nantucket's history originally was being saved for its economy. It's an asset, and that's what was making our vacation travel more desirable than other destinations. And thank goodness people respected that. And through the guidelines, we were able to maintain the settings and our historic architecture. And that has, over the past 40 years that I've been aware of in HTC and participating in architectural preservation, the guidelines have been, they've never changed, but the engagement with which the HTC acts on those guidelines has slacked, and there's plenty of room in what is already stated in the special act to protect not just the building details, but the settings, and that includes siding and scale and all the things that Abby was mentioning earlier that are the HTC feels as though their hands are tied as far as being able to keep things from happening that are degrading the settings and the historic integrity of our community. And so I feel like there's, there really needs to be sort of a review of what the special act is and the powers the HDC holds. And I feel like their duties are the most critical for Nantucket's preservation. They have the greatest power to protect our resources, our historic resources. So maybe it's just a review of what those, what the guidelines are and what the special act is. That's all.
May I add something? It's Carrie.
Yeah, of course, Carrie.
I totally appreciate what Angus is saying. I also think that a huge, important, insurmountable almost part of this is zoning. Just for example, the lot line to lot line construction that Abby suggested happens all the time. That's truly, yes, we can say reduce the building, but legally the zoning allows for a certain setback on each property. So the reality is applications come in that are overblown in our minds, but by zoning are perfectly legal. So this is where our whole group and the Nantucket Town zoning bylaws have to converge somehow. Because
Yeah.
on a legal standing, people have a right to, a certain amount of ground cover per property. So I appreciate Angus's perspective wholeheartedly, but unless zoning helps us,
Yeah.
I feel a little, downtrodden or defeated.
Yeah, Carrie, this issue was very succinctly described to me by the preservation planner at the Cape Cod Commission, who I reached out to, just to meet her and have a general discussion. And so the HDC overrides zoning. And you all know that, and it's defensible in the courts that you are able to override zoning code and tell someone they have to have less ground cover or they can't have as tall a building. But that being said, it's just very, very difficult for historic commissions and historic districts to do it. And one of the main activities of the Cape Cod Commission's preservation plan, supporting all the different historic districts in their towns, I think they have 22 towns, is assisting with zoning review, where they say, okay, what is the pattern of development that exists, the historic pattern of development, or just the pattern of development that we want to see continued? And how does it differ from what's allowed under current zoning? And if it's a dramatically different, big difference, then they can pretty much predict that they're going to have problems. And that's where they recommend zoning changes.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
So that's something, with our preservation planning, we would look at preservation through zoning and bylaws, preservation plan.
Right.
Hillary?
Yes,
Hillary?
Mickey.
Yeah, I need to leave in about 10 minutes. So I just wanted to make
Okay.
a couple of comments before I
Yep.
have to go off. I think sounds like we're about to move into the area where we're going to try to collaborate.
Yes. Areas of joint work and overlap. I'm typing as you speak. Mickey, what should I type?
I just have a couple of sort of just fine points. Two areas that I think we could collaborate. And I'm bringing back building with Nantucket in mind, because I think that's something that we can all work on together. And the other one, I think, is in section 106 reviews. I've just been learning through recent HDC meetings that Stephen Welch is no longer the HDC's liaison for 106 review. I didn't even know that the HDC had one. And
Each commission does.
sorry.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so
Each commission has a representative for section 106 reviews.
right.
Yes.
So I just became aware of that. So I think that since we both have representatives, that it would, for reviewing applications, we could probably do it collaboratively and save some efforts. That's it.
Good idea.
And on that topic, just if I may, you can include me as a partner in that. I may be preservation planner and staff liaison to both these commissions, but I'm also the section 106 rep for the NPDC, as well as I work very, very closely with the town's energy coordinator when it comes to basically working with that whole review process and collaborating, making sure obviously that protection of our NHL is upheld through that process. So again, I have also, on that note, Mickey, I did send information to the entire HDC about section 106. I will also forward that on to the Historical Commission. You all know that Tom is the rep for the Historical Commission at this time. But I do think education, again, I think I harp on that quite a bit, is big. So I will make sure that the NHC also gets that information. Sorry, I'll let you speak now.
Thank you, Holly. I didn't know that, so that's very educational. Mickey, what else did you want to put on this?
That was it, just those two type items for the moment.
And how were you, how would you like to see or think it would be helpful to work together on building with Nantucket in mind? Because, I mean, we are in a supporting role here.
Well, I think the problem so far is, we all know there's funding to help edit the book and update it. But I know that the HDC really hasn't had any time to specifically focus on that issue. So it's something that maybe maybe we have a subgroup of from both commissions that can meet periodically and kind of review section by section. I mean, I'm not sure what the process would be, but just to have kind of a joint process to do it together. I think we can help them because I know they just don't have the time to do it.
Okay.
That's a good idea. I think it's our backbone.
I'm wondering about the method of how these meetings happen. Are they all have to be on Zoom and publicized and wait for the TV station to give us an hour? Or is this something where we can sit around a table and just, hack it out, go through bit by bit? This
Not
format
at this
is
time.
really not conducive to working out through a whole, book of information.
Right.
Like,
So
legally,
we
what
can-
are we allowed to do?
We're allowed to meet in person. There's nothing prohibiting that at this point. But it's, and we're not on the TV right now, we're just on Zoom, and there's a town Zoom channel. It's very available. So it's super easy to meet on Zoom. The only thing is that if we are meeting with a quorum, we just have to post it as a
Okay.
meeting, which, we can do.
Okay.
And Zoom, then if it has to be a posted meeting because there's a quorum, Zoom is actually easy because it's easy for people to come in. I have to step away because I have to get somebody at the door. Hold on. Or please go ahead. I can still hear you.
Well, so while Hillary's getting the door, I would love to be on a committee that met in person to read chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph, building with Nantucket in mind. I think I just wish it wasn't such a long name, and it just sounds a little bit fruity from the 60s. I wish it had a little more oomph, but that's what we got. And so many times we do rely actually on that sentence. Can't you just build with Nantucket in mind? So it really is relevant. But anyway, I for one would like to be on a committee that was, going through the Bible there.
To add to the logistics of it, I would suggest whoever wants to be on this kind of committee, go through the book with a highlighter, write notes where you would change things, write notes where things are not realistic anymore, through the evolution of what's happening on Nantucket and where we personally think changes should be made to the book. That way everyone could come to this thing prepared with some ideas. I'm sure not everybody would get through the whole book, in the same sort of way, but at least it would give us all a place to come together and focus on something rather than reading it all together, page by page, like Abby said. Good idea, but it sounds like it would take 50 hours. But if we all do it on our own to start and come together and pick out the important things, I would be up.
Okay,
for
so
that.
I've made a section that says how we work together. And it
Mhm.
says, as a group, we identify topics that we want to work on. We form joint working groups. Each commission nominates members to be on the joint working group. And then I would say, group. Each working group appoints a secretary to manage postings and logistics. It's not hard. David and I do it together for our commission.
Do we get a tax credit on that?
You get an increase in your salary, Abby. And then we report back, groups report back to joint meetings at how does this look? How we work together as a group, we identify topics we want to work on. We form joint working groups. Each commission nominates members to be on the joint working group. Each working group appoints a secretary to manage postings and logistics. Groups report back at joint meetings of both commissions. Recommendations are adopted by mutual consent.
Are these Zoom meetings or in town meetings?
I think that would be up to the group and the secretary to figure out.
I just, if I may, I just wanted to address, I know George is communicating with us via text. Building with Nantucket in Mind is currently available on the town's website. It's all in PDF format by chapter. It's not quote unquote modernized as far as searchable, but it is available on the town's website.
Can you actually buy it now? Like, is it at Mitchell's or something?
You know, I think you can find it actually on eBay and Amazon. I can tell you that when I was an intern at the Nantucket Preservation Trust, we sold copies of it. I think there was a grant that was provided that they got in order to pay for it republished. As a matter of fact, my copy might be back from them. Yeah, this was in 2002. Reprinting of this book was made possible by the Nantucket Preservation Trust with generous community funding provided by the CPC, Community Preservation Act. A portion of the proceeds goes to the NPT Publications Fund. So that is something that maybe can be looked into. If we're on the topic of building with Nantucket in mind, I do want to caution this commission that I need to find out the status of that funding since it's been sitting for quite a while. I don't know if it's gone back to CPC or not, but it has been a long time sitting there. And I do also want to remind the commissions that the two tried to work together to look at it before, and it really didn't go so smoothly. So if this is going to be something that you all want to work on together, which is great, I'm glad that it would be something that would be included within MOU. Again, guardrails there, guidelines and what everybody is mutually agree upon, because at the end of the day, it is the design guidelines for the Historic District Commission to review applications, for staff to advise people, for the advisor boards to advise people. So, I would want to make sure that everybody is satisfied with that. So
When was the last time that was building with Nantucket in mind? When was the last time that was amended?
Oh, the amendment, it's available on the town's website, so I can look that up fairly quick. I mean, technically, your Resilient Nantucket addendum was the latest addendum to Building with Nantucket in Mind. It's never been formally codified since this last printing, and I want to say that was the original 1995 is when the actual book was done in this format. I don't think the subsequent addendums that have been done to Building with Nantucket in Mind, I don't believe has ever been codified, which would want to be.
That's a good idea.
Ken, do you have any comment on how that CPC grant would be accessed?
Well, the CPC funding would still be there because it was probably never released to go back. And so what would happen is that if there were a project that needed some funding to do something within the scope of the grant, an application would be made indicating that the funds have been spent for this purpose and get reimbursed from the CPC for that. So
Yeah, well, I would suggest we meet in the tap room then.
Is there anything else that would be important to put here about how we work together? I mean, this assumes that we continue to have joint meetings. Do we want to commit to a quarterly joint meeting?
Sure. At least a quarterly.
I would, yeah, I would say quarterly max. But
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to give people time to work.
But then the committees are going to be extra, so definitely quarterly max.
Hillary, what you want to do is you don't want to overburden people with respect to it. I would suggest that you set a target of 2 meetings a year. And if in fact you determine that you need more than that, you add them. But the sense of the original concept behind the CLG was sort of 1 meeting a year. As a new organization starting to, you've got some growing pains, so you want to get stuff set up. But I think that setting a target of 2 meetings a year gives you the ability to review stuff halfway through the year. Means that there's a commitment to it, but also not an overly burdensome commitment to it.
So I was just thinking if I'd agree with you. I was just thinking if we have these subcommittees and they want to actually propose something, that they have to feel like that happens frequently enough that it doesn't become a deterrent to their getting something done.
Nothing,
But I guess
nothing that prevents you from calling for a special meeting if you have a special project.
And how do the committees start? I mean, Hillary, would you send out lists of which committees and people would sign up? And then from there, how many ever people are on each, decide to be on each one, then they as a group decide their meeting schedule? Is that, I mean, how would it work?
Well, you've got 3 suggestions with respect to committees. It seems to me that the chairs could get together and send out an invitation to each of their members asking if they have any interest in serving on any of these committees, get it back to the chairs within a certain point in time. If there's interest, then make a determination as to setting up the committee, what the ground rules are governing what the committee is supposed to be doing, and sort of a target date for when it is to have a report back to the full board relative to what they found.
Okay. I saw Tom's hand go up. Tom, did you want to comment on this topic?
I'm not muted, right?
We can hear you.
So I disagree with Ken on this one. I think that where we are right now and everyone seems to be up in the air, I think we need to have more meetings right at the moment. Now, I understand and I agree with Ken that, originally we were going to have 1 meeting a year with the CLG, but as it turns out, now that we're into the weeds here, I think it's apparent to everybody that we're going to need more meetings right off the bat until we get some of this other important stuff ironed out. And once we've done that, then I think we can, go back to maybe 1 or 2 meetings a year.
So maybe that 4 meetings, 4 times a year sounds good to you, Tom?
It does.
Well, I put down
Everybody
2 to
is
4.
right maxed out. I get that. I know the HDC doesn't need 1 more meeting. I get that. And
No, that's
and neither do some of the rest of us. But I think it's important right now that this is a very important thing that we're doing. And if we need more meetings, then let's do it and get it done.
I agree
Right.
with Tom. We this is kind of a front loaded situation where we really need to sort of commit in the beginning to sort of set our course. And then I think, you know, maybe we don't need to meet as much or we meet in different ways, but in the beginning, just having an understanding of where we are, what we're doing and what our goals are, is critical. And that takes a
Right.
little bit of time and we don't want to lose continuity by, you know, having 6 months pass by.
And if I may just interject one other thing, I think I agree with what Carrie was getting at. Doing this on Zoom, you know, is great, but I think to do something as, I don't know, complicated, I guess is the word I'll use, as rewriting Building with Norfolk in mind, I think it would be way more efficient to do it in person if that's possible.
Yeah, because you're in it, we're in the beginnings of, you're gonna be throwing around a lot of thoughts, and that's hard to do on Zoom. People,
Correct.
you know, if you're, you know, so yeah, I agree.
And you've got the text there in front of you, and you know, it's a lot more to it.
And
Okay,
Zoom
so I
seems
put
like it's
down,
limited in time too. You need to have a good long evening, a number of times to work this
Okay.
stuff out.
so
Well,
I
one
put
thing,
down, each working group appoints a secretary to manage postings and logistics, decide meeting location, and ensure compliance with open meeting law.
okay, well, one thing that I need to keep in mind is I can't get up and just go because I can't walk. And yet I sit on these meetings with interest and turn up on Zoom meeting every time. So if you have them all on thing out in public, then you lose me, which may be good as a participant. Otherwise, I have to do it in such a time that one of my grandchildren can come and pick me up, unless the doctors decide how I can walk, which I would
Okay,
much
so-
rather have. But just keep in mind, you're dealing with a handicapped person who has a right to join.
And
I
maybe,
think we
Absolutely.
can figure that out.
yeah, I think we can accommodate FaceTime, having you in on Zoom with the rest of us in a room, something like that, Diane. We would not want to be cutting you loose at all. We need you.
Exactly. That's why I stated that the way I did. And what Diane Coombs has to say here has always been right on the money, in my opinion.
So I
I
put
do
down
agree.
consideration will be given to having, I'll put maximum effort. Maximum effort will be given to having inclusive and accessible meetings. In the terms of inclusivity, I just want to pause and say that we're missing a couple very vocal and important, a few very vocal and important people. I mean, I think we're conscious of all of the people who can't be present at this meeting today. And I'm particularly thinking about Ray, the chair. You know, he's the person who the HCC has elected as chair, and his voice is very important. And I'm thinking of Stephen, who, although he's not an elected commissioner, your commission has deferred to him or assigned roles to him. I mean, a lot of this MOU that we've incinerated here was written by Stephen. In fact, there's a little bit more I want to incinerate. So I don't want to do that. You know, I recognize that just because people aren't here doesn't mean they don't have a voice. And then Val, you know, she was the one who said, I don't understand what you do and I need to understand. So I will also comment that the communication has not been great. You know, we have to have a leadership team to manage things in between meetings. And I have been experiencing that, you know, I'll email suggestions like, shall we have a meeting of the leadership team to discuss the agenda? And it'll just be silent. I won't hear anything. So if we are going to have a leadership team, it has the responsibility of, you know, deciding. I had started to write, as Ken suggested, that the leadership team is going to decide on what we're going to work on. It has to be having people on it who want to do this work.
It seems that this worked in terms of having Holly send out an email saying there's a CLG meeting today at 1 o'clock, show up. And obviously some people can't show up all the time. But in terms of leadership team, that seems to be the simplest thing, is just having Holly send out an email when our next meeting is. I think we're close. It sounds to me like we're close to getting some committees. If we could just get the sign up sheets or whatever it will be to have people say which thing they're interested in being on. No?
Well, Carrie, but like, for instance, this MOU, I mean, I think this MOU should have been circulated to the leadership team for review before it was brought to the entire group. Now, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't know.
And it
I've
seems,
been on too many committees, so I don't know.
yeah.
How it worked, to
I mean,
tell you
it seems to
the
be
truth.
working out fine anyway, but I wish Ray were here. I mean, we can go ahead and assign these groups, but I'm just a little concerned that, well, I guess I really want to hear from Abby as the chair of the HDC at this meeting about how she wants to bring along Ray, Val, and Stephen, and also John.
Yeah, I
who-
think, well, what we have these, at the beginning of every meeting, there's on the agenda, there's also topics that we want to do, and of course, we never get to them. But so maybe that's not a good place to do it, but maybe Holly, Holly definitely is a key to this all. That maybe I could bring it up as public comment at the next meeting, and it would be the wording, like how would I word it to my board as to what we are working on, and would it be exclusively a committee to review the building with Nantucket in mind? Or was there another thing we were going to do in this?
Well, the things that came up in our last meeting, Abby, just to remind everybody, was, what essentially was building with Nantucket in mind, this whole context and all that. Then also sustainability and demolition came up as a topic. And then the screening and landscape.
Well, yeah, I'm not very good at writing. Maybe could you write up something that you would want this group to, or are there two groups here? I don't know. What you would want from the HDC. What are we saying that we're trying to do here in this meeting?
I think one of the important things is to, when we talk about leadership team, is, a group, but not a quorum from each group, the NHC and the HDC, to interested parties to voice the opinions and work through details so that our group CLG meetings with everyone involved are more effective and less time consuming. We can cover more territory if we're able to sort of work out the kinks and details in these focus groups through 2 leadership groups, one from each board, so that we can bring our ideas forward in the meeting. And it's just about efficiency and what can we accomplish. And it's discouraging to have the chair of the HDC not be here for the pre-meeting, have an appointment in the middle of our first and only meeting so far, and be absent in our second meeting. So I don't, I don't know what's going on there, but it's
Right.
it's awkward.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Ray, but I feel like I need to, because that's kind of, first of all, he had to leave early in the first meeting, wasn't really aware that everybody had agreed upon trying to get this MOU created. So it was brought to his attention when he received the draft minutes. So there's that. Secondly, he already had a previous engagement once we established today as the date for the follow-up. So, things happen. Hopefully we can have more of both more of the HDC at follow-up subsequent meetings, but I just needed to say that for the record. Thanks.
Yeah, I think he's actually at his father's birthday in Florida right now, so it's not a statement on his part.
I think this is going to be an ongoing situation because everybody has a life and everybody's schedule will not work on every committee meeting, but then it's up to the others to fill whoever's missing in on what happened so that they're not lost in the muck on the next committee meeting. It seems as simple as that. We just got to update them on what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So can I review where I think we are? I think we have updated the list of what the NHC does in a way that seems satisfactory to everybody. We have affirmed that we want to include this excerpt from the Act as written here for the HDC, and that we have a list of what the HDC is responsible for, that Hillary, Team, Holly, and Diane will have a Zoom to finalize this list. And if anybody else feels like they really want to be in on that conversation, it can't be more than two. It can be one other person from the HDC, and it can be other people from the NHC who want it. We can have up to 3 people without a quorum. Okay. Then we have this area of collaboration required duties as a certified local government, which I think, maybe I can just talk with Holly about. I will say, what some of these, like this, it says here the required duties are to establish a qualified historic preservation commission. The language is actually to maintain. So in other words, they gave us this designation because we already have it. So, and it's actually the HDC because the Qualified Historic Preservation Commission is listed, but we're at the end of our meeting. I'm not going to make any changes to this. Holly, can we just talk about it later?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want it for the record I already changed it to make it fit Nantucket, if you will, which if you remember correctly was in the first CLG agenda. But it's also on the town's website now with our CLG page. These all duties, I think this verbiage came directly from one of the documents that I provided to you all, which again is very basic, but I made it clear that how it pertains to Nantucket. So
Yeah.
yes, that is duly noted, and I've notated that.
Okay, thanks. And then we also have, I'm going to get back to this, what we're going to work together. This language that the HDC can solicit us and we can solicit you. Both commissions review historic preservation. I don't think this belongs here. I mean, it just seems kind of like randomly stuck in here. If there's a duty that we each have, it should be under what our duties are. And we're going to be collaborative. Now, there's this language, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, be it in fact or interpretation, neither commission shall interrupt or interfere with the official duties, roles, or responsibilities of the other independent commission. I think if we've pledged to be collaborative, I don't know what this means. I mean, what is interfering? I don't know. It seems divisive to me.
This was a recommendation from Mr. Welch, so
yeah,
I can't answer that question.
Well, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think it might mean that, say we voted on something as the HDC, we wouldn't want suddenly your committee to override us. I think that's where that's coming from.
Is
Or
this,
vice
as this
versa.
is part of the HDC's presentation, I don't think that the Historic Commission should be deleting it. I think it should be raised when Welch is here, and at that point in time, make a determination as to whether or not it should be deleted.
Yeah, all of these strikeouts are just suggestions. That's why I'm doing it in tracking changes. I mean, I think there's probably going to be a lot of stuff that, I don't know.
Well,
I'll tell
just-
you why I don't, the problem that I have with this is that we cannot override your decisions. You can make your own decisions. There's just no way for us to do it. And what this implies to me, and I will recognize that I'm a little sensitive about it, we advocate to you. And I think that some can make some people uncomfortable. And but I'm not going to put anything in this MO. I would not personally, I'm speaking for myself, want to sign anything that limits our right to advocate to you, because that is in someone's interpretation interfering or,
Right.
do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. Are you going to be emailing this thing with all your strikeouts and things for people who want to can edit? So if Stephen
Yes.
can see that is struck out on your as your sort of suggestion to then speak about again to get what he's getting at versus just reading what he
Yeah.
said, like why did he say it? What does he mean by it? So you can just notate that, and so we can then talk about it next time and he has a chance to look at it and absorb it and think about it.
Okay. To that point, I've made just a comment.
I think that, oh,
That's-
I'm sorry, Hillary.
No, go ahead, Diane.
No, I think that should be put in red so that it's picked up. I think solicits recommendations for the town manager regarding potential nominations to the national thing. That's the purview of the Board of Selectmen or the HCC and or the HNHC.
Diana, if I may, that section that you're reading, number 3, those are actually all the things that I'm charged to do under the CLG.
Right, so I think that's a very unfriendly
Right.
addition.
Well, this is boilerplate. Am I right about that, Holly?
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
this is actually not really relevant to us, and we don't
Yeah.
have to put it in a statement of what we do.
Nobody tells one commission that they have to get along with another, and nobody has one commission that's going to fight over another. It's the only person the commission technically can fight with, I believe, is the Board of Select. I just think it undoes what we're trying to do.
Yeah, just if I may, I wanted to have a section in here about my duties as preservation planner in CLG, because I feel as the common denominator between the two commissions, I should be included with this MOU, and I believe I have support from town admin on that.
Yeah, and you should. If we have what we do on here, you should have what you do on here as a specific sort of job description, Holly. I think that makes great sense.
You do a great job. I wasn't talking about you. I just was talking about the feeling that it gave that this was worded that way, perhaps. What is the town
Understood.
admin?
What is
thing-
what?
What is the town admin? You just
Town
said-
admin, town
Yeah.
administration.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So
That's
I
it.
just want to make sure we're on the same page, Diane. You have, along with both commissions and the town of Nantucket's commitment for historic preservation, the town's preservation planner retains the responsibility of the local CLG coordinator. These duties include attends MHC training sessions for CLGs, transmits National Register nominations and CLG reports to MHC. We're not making National Register, but the point is that if we have to send something from our commissions to the NHC, it's Holly.
Yeah. no, I-
Solicits recommendations for the town manager regarding, okay, so this, I think we can delete. Holly,
Yeah.
is that okay? Notifies chief elected officials of vacancies on the commissions, regularly attends meetings of both commissions, collects material from each commission for the annual report, organizes the annual joint meeting. I think that's all.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, now this is where there's some additional detail. The preservation planner CLG coordinator serves as the technical expert for historic resource planning and staff liaison both to the HCC and the NHC, and assists in the administration of grant application and projects related to historic preservation. It's noted that the preservation planner meets the professional criteria as established by the secretary. This is based on Holly's education and experience. Therefore, the preservation planner CLG coordinates provide technical, architectural, historical, and policy guidance. All right, so creates agendas. Holly, you don't, I don't, we have to create our own agendas.
Right.
This,
That's fine. That
Okay.
comes out of my job description, so. That's
okay.
fine.
And oversees all, and now, so overseas, I would say you support or coordinate. All meetings. Staff for the CLG Commission will consist of the CLG coordinator, the HDC compliance coordinator, and other plus administrators assigned. These, okay, that's all fine. This bit here is what Abby has asked for some language around to present at the next HDC meeting and public comment. And to review, I think what we're saying, I don't think we're going to finish this today. And in fact, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. We worked on this MOU and we've gotten it really close. And that is what we said we wanted to do. And then we said that the next 2 meetings we've agreed to have, because we agreed to have 3 meetings on the next 3 months. So the January meeting will be for deciding on these committees. And we have, and adopting the MOU. And in the meantime, we can, you know, get feedback on the MOU. And I would respectfully ask Holly, if you could make sure that the feedback is adopted as recommendations and requests and not just sort of, you know, done and sent out to everybody 2 days before the meeting.
Yeah, so everybody needs to send them to me by what date? And what date are we meeting?
Okay.
we need
So
to-
we've been meeting the second Friday of every month at 1. So we're suggesting then meeting January 14th.
I will not be here.
Okay,
I know that.
is
already.
Friday the best day for everybody to meet? Or is there another day?
Right,
No,
going-
Friday's a good day. I don't have a meeting on Friday.
What about Friday the 7th? I mean, that gives people plenty of time. Friday the 7th to go through this and send comments to Holly?
January
That one-
7th?
Yes.
I don't think, I'm here.
I am here that Friday. I'm just not here the next Friday.
And I'm out the week before because that's school vacation. So that means people would have to get me stuff the 3rd and you guys aren't going to get it in time.
And then I'm also wondering about sending out preliminary sign-up lists for the committees, so people might have an idea when we do meet next time, who is interested in what, to see that they have enough people. Each committee has enough people.
And I'd hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I have to leave and go pick up my little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so
What if we
David,
go
you had a
23rd?
hand up?
Yeah, just one thing that I'm wondering if we need to add to joint work and overlap is tax credits. Is that there or is that already covered? And is that
Well,
something
I
that
think the
HDC wants
the
to-
NHC is doing this program to educate people about tax credits. So if the HDC wants, you know, to have some role, they can put it on their list of what they do, which we're going to talk about with Holly and
Okay.
Kadeem.
Thanks.
What if we
Okay.
made it the 3rd Friday? That skips the 7th, skips the 15th, but we got 2 people. 7th is Holly. 15th is Carrie. What about the next one?
When the
So that's
NHC
when the NHC meets on the 3rd Friday.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, why is the 7th doesn't work? Holly, is that because you have vacation, so you don't have time to
I'm
circulate it?
I'm going to be out and yeah, I'm going to be out for
Okay.
school vacation, which is the 27th through the 31st. So that,
Okay,
yeah.
how about January
7th is-
28th?
I was gonna say the 7th is 4 weeks away. Is it not possible? I mean, it seems like we've gotten a lot of work done here and it's a bit of tweaking here and there, but that gives everybody, 4 weeks to actually think about it. But as far as like presenting something, is it possible to do that within a 3 weeks, sometime before Holly goes on her vacation? To be, so that can circulate, so we can actually look at something on the 7th.
Holly,
She's gonna
maybe,
Go on.
maybe you could do a doodle poll, because we want to make sure we pick a day when Ray and Val and Stephen, and if John McLaughlin wants to join, can do it. So I would say, let's look at the 7th or the 28th. And if it's the 7th, we just have to recognize that we're going to post the meeting before Holly goes on vacation, and everybody's got to get the feedback to her right away. Does that work for you, Holly?
Yep, if that means people are getting it to me before Christmas.
Okay, Christmas present.
Before
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, you can always say we're going for the 7th or the 28th. Which one works, which one realistically
Yeah.
will you get time to review this thing? I mean, we're all in on this meeting, so we don't have too much to review necessarily, but the others will need a little more time. If they can't do the 7th, then it sounds like we got to push it to the 28th.
okay.
It
Like-
would give Holly more time to put her life
Hillary, would
together.
you be able to send me what you've been marking up for us? So that way I can distribute to everybody?
Yes, I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it right away. I'm going to go through it and like check any typos, make sure it makes sense, format it, but the content will not change. And Carrie, as far as your interest in signing up, I think we're going to have to really tackle the committees and the work groups in our next meeting together, so we can make sure we get feedback from everybody.
Sure, yeah, sure, of course.
Okay.
And to be clear, I mean, I really do think next meeting should be one to hopefully approve an MOU. Again, this does still need to be flushed out through with town council, make sure they're okay with it. And then, establishing, I guess, these committees. Who is, right? Is that what our?
Yes,
goal
those are
is?
the objectives. Yep. I've tried to capture those other things that Abby brought up on this list of what to work on. I think we also had pools, but this can be changed. Okay. What does everybody think? We good?
Thanks.
Good.
Awesome. This has been great.
Weekend, everybody.
Yes, thank you. I guess we do need formal, I guess, to motion
Motion
to adjourn, yeah. From both
Make a
committees.
motion to adjourn.
I also make a motion to adjourn. So,
Second.
Aye.
okay. I think both of our meetings are adjourned.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
If I don't see you all, happy holidays.
You too, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you next week, Holly.